Recently, the terms fast fashion, sustainability, and eco-fashion have been popping up all over the internet. What do these terms really mean for our environment and our future? To find these answers, we have to look into our past, more specifically, the history of the textile industry. The fashion and textile industries are an ever-changing and evolving frontier. New ideas are spreading faster than ever with the widespread use of social media. Today, many clothes are mass-produced to be sold in stores where people often want to buy the same thing to fit the popular style. Online shopping also makes buying items easier and faster so more people can hop on the newest trend. If this is how clothes are bought today, historically, how would people have purchased their clothes? Historically, clothes were often tailored to fit specifically to the person who would wear them. This meant that clothes were not mass-produced or thrown away if they didn't fit. If a piece of clothing no longer fit but was still wearable, it would be altered to fit the body over time. This led to less waste. Historically, clothes were made out of biodegradable materials such as cotton, wool, or silk. Non-biodegradable synthetics such as polyester, nylon, and acrylic are commonly used today. Clothes were also woven or shaped by hand, leading to higher prices but also higher quality. Many natural dyes were used historically, as opposed to synthetics that often pollute rivers today. These natural dyes were often made out of colorful plants, bug shells, or even fruits. Some historical dyes, such as arsenic, were an unknown danger at the time. While toxic dyes like arsenic are no longer used, synthetic dyes and chemicals can pollute our water sources, kill marine animals, and even make their way into our food. During the Industrial Revolution of the early 20th century, mass production of clothes became common. Following this, our consumerist society emerged in the 1950s. A consumerist society is characterized by an increased production and consumption rate due to marketing. Later, several groups that reject mass-produced clothing or traditional fashion began emerging. This started in the 1960s with the hippie revolution, which was followed by the punk and goth movements of the 70s and 80s. The 1990s saw increased global communication and therefore offshore production. This made garments cheaper and more accessible than they ever were before. At the same time, eco-fashion movements, similar to the sustainable fashion movements of today, began. But the pioneers of fast fashion, H&M and Zara, were already starting to become popular. Fast fashion refers to the quick and inexpensive production of clothes to fit the latest trends. While this may not sound like a bad thing, for example, more people can get clothes that are in style, the pollution that this industry causes is harmful to the environment. Let's start with materials. The main materials used in fast fashion include polyester and cotton, although nylon and acrylic are also common. Polyester, or PET, is made from the same plastic that is used in water bottles. It is produced using petroleum. The process takes a large amount of energy and releases CO2 into the atmosphere, as well as ammonia and acids into the water supply. Recycled polyester uses 60% less energy than the original production of the material, although discrepancies in the recycled material may require re-dyeing of the fabric. Polyester also releases up to 700,000 microplastic fibers with every wash, which can end up in the ocean, and therefore in our food. Cotton does not have the same problems as polyester, but it is a chemical and water-intensive material to grow and produce. According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, 20,000 liters of water are used to make 1 kilogram of cotton, which is just enough for one shirt and pair of jeans. And 11% of the world's pesticides are used on cotton crops. Although cotton can be produced organically, many companies that claim to be using sustainable or organic cotton aren't actually using organic cotton. Instead, they may be using recycled cotton, or cotton that was grown with less pesticides or GMOs. While many companies may claim to recycle old clothing, less than 1% of recycled clothes actually end up being recycled and sold as clothes again. Over half of donated clothes are sold overseas, and the rest are turned into industrial material, put in landfill, or burned. The reason that recycling clothing is so hard is because it's made up of so many different parts that each have to be separated in order for them to be recycled. We simply lack the technology to do this. While recycling clothes and making their production from start to finish more environmentally friendly theoretically could help, we are simply producing too much clothing. The average consumer buys 60% more clothing than they did in 2000 and keep it half as long. Because clothing has become so easy to buy with online shopping and lower prices, it can easily be thrown out after being worn only a few times. Some surveys have found that up to 50% of clothing in the UK is never worn. This unused clothing is usually burned or thrown in landfill, approximately 1 garbage truck load every second. Most of this clothing will never fully biodegrade because of the polyester, nylon, or acrylic used in it. So maybe we should take a page out of history's book and keep our clothes a little longer. Not only do clothes consume our landfills, they pollute our rivers, release greenhouse gases, and even make their way into our food. The production of textiles uses up to 93 million tons of water each year, half of what Americans drink annually. This water often includes pesticide runoff, dyes, chemicals, heavy metals, biocides, carcinogens, and salts. This polluted water can contain up to 72 dangerous substances, but in some areas still runs straight into rivers where animals live and people get their drinking water. Overall, the textile industry produces 17 to 20% of global industrial wastewater pollution. The textile industry is also responsible for 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions and 20% of the global carbon emissions. Finally, the repeated washing of clothes can release small amounts of dye and microplastic fibers into water sources. These can then end up in the food we eat. Organizations such as the Global Organic Textile Standard, the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, and the Alliance for Sustainable Fashion have all been working to make fashion more sustainable. The use of organically grown materials, recycling garments, and making the entire textile production process more environmentally friendly are all great objectives, such as in the sustainable and eco-fashion movements. When clothes are produced in this way, all materials come from sustainable and renewable sources. But I believe that we are simply producing too many clothes. We need to slow our consumption rate so companies will slow their production rate. Some companies have started renting clothes that can be returned after they're worn for an event or occasion. Thrift shops and second-hand stores also reduce waste by handing down clothes. Other companies still tailor clothes specifically to the person who is wearing the garment. And we can still alter clothes. A simple sewing class could easily teach a group of people how to alter a garment so it fits a growing body. And all of these tactics lead to less waste over time. So I think that we can learn a lot from the history of fashion and how it can begin to solve some of our problems today. That is why we need to learn about history, so we can learn from our past and create a better tomorrow.